Hey folks, I'm Bert. Now that Street Fighter 6 is out, I wanted to go over a little bit of the wrestling references that Zangief has in this game. There's a bunch of little minor ones as well as some really big obvious ones, and I just wanted to put together a little video talking about what sorts of things to catch. There's more wrestling in this game than he's ever had in any of the other previous iterations. Let's start with his normal throws. So first thing on his regular neutral throw, its classic body slam is famously seen by like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, probably one of the biggest individual moments in pro wrestling history. But a neat little touch to it. If you look at Honda's hand in this clip, so part of a body slam is the person that's getting thrown is using their hand on the thigh of the person doing the throw to help brace coming up. So even though Street Fighter is shown as like, oh, these are real fights and stuff, there's still some wrestling nuances here where it's a scripted event. So if you watch his hand there, he's lifting himself up partially with Zangief. Next up is the follow-up to that. If you hold the throw button on a neutral throw, after the body slam, Zangief will do a big ol' elbow drop, and he has a little bit of a flourish to it. It's kind of reminiscent of The Rock's finisher, the People's Elbow, from back in the Attitude Era.
It's the most electrifying move in sports entertainment today. Oh, the People's Elbow! An exclamation point!
This next one is his down back throw. It's kind of a two-parter. The first part is that stomach kick, which is very reminiscent of Stone Cold Steve Austin leading into the Stone Cold Stunner. He'd always kick him in the stomach before setting up the stunner. And then the second part is definitely a classic DDT, made famous by and invented by Jake the Snake Roberts from back in the 80s.
So close. Here comes the DDT. It's over. It's over right there.
Next up, we've got one of Zangief's best throws in this game mechanically. That's the down forward throw, which is a spine buster. A lot of wrestlers have used spine busters over the years, but probably most famously by Arn Anderson of the Four Horsemen. Next up is a couple of different kinds of suplexes that he's got on a few of his normal throws as well as one of his command grabs. I see these as a German suplex.
That elbow. And here's Angle. Oh, Lesnar went for the clothesline. Oh, suplex.
A vertical suplex.
Neck from the drop kick, or goes to the back. Perhaps.
And a double suplex.
Brace yourself. I don't see any other way to describe it. Went for another giant suplex and he connected again. And now he's not letting go. There's no release here. This is flat out.
Next up are a couple of normals I want to talk about on Zangief. The first is his standing heavy punch. He can charge it back or he can just do it immediately, but something that's kind of neat about it is punches in wrestling have to be a little exaggerated. There's folks that are watching from far away. You want to make sure they can see what you're doing, and a big, long, dramatic punch like that is very visible. But also it gives the person that's receiving the punch the knowledge that, hey, I'm about to get punched, I need to look like I got hit. Something else that's a neat little detail with this is he stomps his foot when he punches, which is a technique that a lot of wrestlers will use, especially they used to use it way back in the day, to make sound as though they are making contact even if they're not really making contact that hard.
Down, and then I finish it off with a turn. Okay, so it's cha, okay, cha. Now, if you want to take it back to the 80s, now we'll give a little stomp. And all I'm doing is here, here, and I'm just, from here to here is all I'm doing. And I give it a stomp.
Speaking of imitating sounds to sound like you're making contact, Zangief's roundhouse, if you look real closely, he slaps his thigh as he does it, which is, again, a pretty common thing in wrestling, especially for people that are throwing out super kicks, so that you can pretend to kick somebody, you miss their face by just a little bit, but when you slap your thigh, it gives the illusion that you're actually hitting them.
Super kick! Super kick! Super kick!
Next up is his medium punch target combo, these big classic chest chops. A lot of wrestlers have done it. Ric Flair famously did in the 80s. Here's some really hard-hitting ones from Walter, now known as Gunther in WWE, and these things really hurt. If you've ever seen pictures of folks at the end of wrestling shows with their chest all torn up, it's probably from chops like these. They really do make contact and they can tear you up.
But oh my God, the pull from...
Here's Zangief's classic spinning pile driver. He's had it since his first appearance. A lot of wrestlers have done it. Everybody from Cactus Jack to The Undertaker to Kevin Steen. There's quite a long history of pile drivers.
You know what's coming here. Oh, that'll do it.
Now for his supers. His first is a surface-to-air power bomb. He jumps up and grabs you. Obviously, this is very dramatized for the sake of the game, but a lot of wrestlers have done power bombs throughout history. Famously, Batista did a power bomb. This is kind of like a double power bomb that ends in a sit-out variation of it. He's got a couple different variations of his level 2. They both begin with an impossible movement, which is the Cyclone Lariat, but if he does not hold down the attack button, he gets a jackhammer, which was very famously Goldberg's finisher all throughout his big legendary undefeated streak in the 90s. Is a big super spinning pile driver. There's not really a big reference point for this, but it is worth noting he does say this is your last ride as he's doing.
This is your last ride.
And the last ride was Undertaker, one of Undertaker's finishers back in the day, which I think that's just a nice little nod to a pretty well-known wrestling legend. Finally, one last little funny Easter egg. During Zangief's idle animation, periodically he'll reach his hand out, offering the test of strength. This is like a super classic 70s and 80s thing where one wrestler would start the match by putting his hand up like that, and the other wrestler would go and put his hand up, and they'd have a test of strength. Oftentimes the bad guy would break out of it. Yeah, so that's some of Zangief's wrestling references in this game. Again, I love that they really included a lot of those little tidbits and Easter eggs and references to pro wrestling. So hopefully we'll see more of that in Capcom's future. Have a good one.